we're on. The Eagles have advanced to the NFC Championship game. The underdogs beat the Atlanta Falcons by a score of 15-10. Welcome to the Postgame Show presented by Ricoh. I'm Chris McPherson alongside Ike Reese, baby. Ike Reese, how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling great, brother. We got the W, playoff win. We're headed to the NFC Championship game with the opportunity to go to the Super Bowl next week.
3,289 days. That's the last time the Eagles won a playoff game. January 11, 2009, divisional round against the New York Giants. Well, it happens in our house at the lake. The Eagles holding on for dear life there. 4th and goal, 2-yard line. Matt Ryan rolls to the right, and he throws it, and Julio Jones, all-world wide receiver, the guy you want to go to in that situation, is covered by the underdog of underdogs, Jalen Mills. 7th-round pick in 2016. Mills does the job. The ball is incomplete, goes out of bounds, and the Eagles hold on. But this win, Ike, was a microcosm of the entire season, of how this team has overcome adversity. It has been so resilient that it was fitting that it took the offense with Nick Foles, who had basically been buried by the media. Everyone said had no chance of bringing a playoff win for the Eagles. He gets it done offensively. Defense stepping up huge, dominating the game in the second half. Very similar in some ways to the Cowboys game in Dallas, where the Eagles trailed at halftime, but then took over and dominated the second half, shutting out the Cowboys then, shutting out the Falcons here. And Jake Elliott, look, he missed the extra point, which complicated some things, but he set the NFL rookie record and franchise postseason record with the 53-yard field goal. And Doug Pearson, hats off to him. So proud of him for getting this win. He did a phenomenal job coaching, getting this team ready, being aggressive at the right times, throwing the challenge flag at the perfect time, just top to bottom. It was ugly, but this is how the Eagles are going to win in the playoffs with Nick Foles at quarterback. And they did just enough to advance, knocking out the defending conference champions, Ike.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Listen, we'll get to Nick Foles in a second, but the stars of this game were on the defensive side of the ball. And we knew coming into the game that the defense would have to play outstanding in order for them to have a chance to win this game. To hold that Falcons offense to only 10 points, 1 for 3 in the red zone. They didn't even get a couple turnovers. The Eagles turned the ball over. Defense put in some difficult positions early in the game. That's really the only reason the Falcons got a touchdown in this game, is because they started to drive, I believe, from like the 20-yard line, off the muff punt. So hats off to this defense and the way that they played today. Matt Ryan held to under 200 yards passing. Julio had some big catches down the stretch, but he didn't get the big catch that they were looking for, and that's the touchdown throw. You talked about Jalen Mills on the final play doing a good job of defending him. Give Ronald Darby credit as well.
First down, yep.
2 plays earlier, he's able to keep him out of the end zone. Just really the defense with their back against the wall with multiple weapons on that offensive side of the ball for Matt Ryan to try to get the ball to. They're able to keep them out of the end zone and preserve this victory for the Eagles. The last time Nick Foles and this Eagles team was in the playoff, he left the field with a 5-point lead, I believe it was, or he left the field with a 1-point lead, and they wind up losing the football game with 5 minutes left to go. I'm sitting there having deja vu, thinking to myself, oh my God, is this about to happen again? And no, the defense comes up with the big stop when they needed it the most. And, you talked about Doug Peterson. Give Doug Peterson a lot of credit for keeping this team together. The last 2 regular season games weren't pretty, but, the bye week helped this team sort of regroup, get re-energized, get healthy, and they came out clicking on all cylinders on the defensive side of the ball. And when you look at the offensive side of the ball, Nick did exactly what he needed to do today. When he needed to make big throws, for the most part, he was able to make big throws. Would have liked to have seen them get in the end zone on the last time they had the ball.
Certainly.
But he led them down the field. That was the game-clinching field goal. It forced Atlanta to have to score a touchdown, so you're certainly happy about putting points on the board there. But just a great all-around effort from this Eagles team, and I couldn't be happier for Doug, his staff, these players. And then check this out. How about the Eagles fans that showed up today? Lots of trepidation leading up to this game. They didn't know what they were going to get. I'm happy that they came out. They were supportive.
They brought it regardless.
They really did.
They brought it.
They really did. But I tell you, a week ago, you wouldn't have known what you were going to get, once the ball was kicked off. So hats off to these fans, because they deserve a win as well. You know, this is a football town. We've been dying for postseason success for a long time around here, and it's great to get an Eagles victory on our home field.
It's crazy that it's been since 2009, the 2009 calendar year, the 2008 season, that the last time that the Eagles won a playoff game, well, that schneid is over. The curse, so to speak, you could say, is broken for now. The Eagles advance by a score of 15-10. They will play in the NFC Championship game a week from tomorrow, and they will play either the Minnesota Vikings or the New Orleans Saints at 6:40 p.m. Tickets, everyone wants to know the big question here. Tickets go on sale Tuesday at 10 a.m. on Ticketmaster. So you heard it here, folks, first, that right there, the tickets will be available come Tuesday. But let's get back to this thrilling victory. And you talk about Nick Foles. He didn't turn the ball over. That to me, was the biggest thing on his end. Jay Ajayi had the one fumble early. The other turnover came off special teams. But Nick Foles, the concern for him was if he couldn't get into a rhythm early, that's one thing. And we saw that, okay?
Yeah.
But the biggest thing would be just don't turn the ball over and end up in a situation where you're down 10-0 and having to get out of your game plan, get out of your comfort zone, and pretty much have to throw the game plan away. And Nick Foles was able to contain himself, play within himself. I thought Doug Pearson calling the plays was phenomenal in terms of getting him in rhythm with those RPOs. Did a great job from that standpoint. So the coaching staff over the last 2 weeks did a phenomenal job of getting Nick ready for the moment. That's the biggest thing there was all the noise on the outside. And not just getting him ready from an X and O standpoint, making sure mentally that he was still in the game, because all the noise from the outside was Nick was going to hold this team back, and Nick was going to keep this team from reaching its potential in the postseason. Well, that wasn't the case today. This was not going to be a day where Nick Foles was the reason, or would have been the reason, the Eagles lost. Nick Foles did everything, and coming into this game, you knew that Nick Foles, if he could play within himself, okay, the guys around him had to step up. And the Eagles won this game in the trenches, okay? You look at the job that the Eagles' offensive line did getting to the second level. Deion Jones, phenomenal playmaking linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons. Time after time again on those big run plays, you saw guys get into the second level, blocking him out of the way. I mean, he's only 220 pounds at 6 feet tall. Eagles taking advantage of the fast-flowing Atlanta defense and playing to their strengths of using that athletic offensive line to get to the second level and being able to take charge from that standpoint. And then defensively, same thing, winning in the trenches with Brandon Graham, fourth quarter, a couple of big tackles for loss. Fletcher Cox was outstanding. This was the type of game you want to see from Fletcher Cox. This is your franchise player on the defensive side of the football, and he was in that playoff game in 2013, but he was a second-year player at that point. Now he is the guy. He was the guy who had to step up, and he was double-teamed through most of the game, but still was able to make an impact, pushing back the pocket, and great to see Brandon Graham, who was forcing Matt Ryan to rush the ball, forcing him to rush the ball, rush a couple of throws, but being able to get some key tackles for loss there late in the game as well.
Yeah, you talk about those key tackles for losses. Those are huge. To me, those are just like sacks. I mean, when Brandon Graham is tackling Devontae Freeman 6-7 yards in the backfield, that's just as good of a sack because it puts you behind the chains, right? So now you got the Falcons in 2nd and 15. 3rd and 15. So I love what this front was able to do today. They had a clear advantage going up against this Atlanta Falcons offensive line, and it played itself out on the field. I was happy to see that because when you look at this team, when I look at overall units on this team, the most talent on this team lies in the defensive line. And really, if they were going to win this football game from a defensive standpoint, they had to dominate the game. They had to control the game. Tevin Coleman had a few runs here or there on the outside, but for the most part, they held that rushing duo to 86 yards, didn't allow them to get over 100, couple runs sprung loose, but for the most part, I thought this defensive front dominated the Atlanta Falcons offensive line.
Yeah, a couple times they lost contain on the edge, but that was really it. But you knew that the toss play was going to be huge for the Atlanta Falcons. That was one of their go-to plays, and it's something that had given the Eagles problems in the past. Well, the Eagles did just enough to shore up the edges to make sure that they didn't become too pervasive a problem throughout the course of the game. Coverage overall was solid, but again, great job by the front four getting home. And Jim Schwartz with some well-timed blitzes. I think about that Rodney McLeod sack there late in the game. I mean, perfectly timed. It's something you don't see a lot of from Jim Schwartz. bringing the blitz. Well, Rodney McLeod played it perfectly, and that was a drive that basically came off the board for the Falcons. So the Eagles doing a great job in the second half of controlling the clock with the run game, keeping the Atlanta offense sidelined, and the defense making quick work. And in that last drive, you were just waiting for someone to make the play. Who was going to step up big? And on 4th and goal, look, you're going to the best receiver in the game, Julio Jones. That's your go-to guy. You have your all-pro quarterback, former MVP Matt Ryan. You have the all-pro wide receiver. That's your go-to guy. And Jalen Mills was there for the shining moment. So Jalen Mills, who has been questioned from the time that he became a starter earlier this season of whether he would be good enough, big moment for him. That to me, again, just epitomizes how this team has become the underdog by everyone on the outside because they lost Carson Wentz. But Jalen Mills is one of those players who is an underdog, being a former 7th-round pick, coming up huge in the biggest play of his career.
I'm going to go back to the other side of the ball. You mentioned Doug. We need to really give him a lot of credit for the offensive game plan they put together today. Real balanced, running, throwing the ball. They were able to keep Nick Foles in situations where it wasn't as predictable. I thought Jay Ajayi ran the ball hard after he fumbled earlier in the game. LeGarrette Blount had some key runs in there late in the game, tough runs in between the tackles, staying ahead of the chains. Even when they only got 1 or 2 yards, and if it got to 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, these are still manageable downs. And then you go to some of the throws that they dialed up for Nick. Also, advantageous for this Eagles offense. Get the ball out of his hands quick. I think about the drive in the 3rd quarter where he hit Alshon like on 3 big 3rd downs to pick up 1st downs. Those are things that the offensive play caller needs to do to keep his quarterback in the rhythm. And I thought the play calling today was magnificent, especially key for Nick Foles and what he does well. He had the one deep ball early in the game that got us a pass interference. You know, people don't realize looking at the game, going that direction, the wind was blowing in the face of the team that was going towards.
Well, Matt Ryan had the same issue too.
Had the same issue. When the ball get up in the air, it's going to get caught up in the wind. But I thought they did a nice job keeping Atlanta's defense off balance and really not getting away from the game plan. You know, Doug didn't panic and feel like he needed to throw. Really stayed within the game plan, ran the ball effectively, and really put Nick in a situation where he could thrive. I thought it was a magnificent game plan.
All right, so a little bit later, we're going to hear from the victorious head coach, Doug Pearson. We're going to hear from quarterback Nick Foles. We're going to have all 22 review, courtesy of Fran Duffy and Greg Cosell. We're also going to have Merrill Camp. I can only imagine how crazy Merrill must have been going inside the booth. But first, we're going to send it over to the link for Eagles insider Dave Spadaro's perspective of the win. He was out there on the sidelines for pretty much the whole game. What was it like to be there as the Eagles beat the Atlanta Falcons? Dave, take it away.
Guys, the stadium is just now emptying out, and what an exhilarating feeling here at Lincoln Financial Field. I mean, a game that was everything we kind of thought it would be, a hard-fought, low-scoring game. The shocker here is that the Eagles -2 in turnovers, yet they win the game. And the analytics tell you that if you are -2, 80% of the time, 8-0, you lose the game. So the Eagles really hung in there and did a terrific job. Let's talk about the defense first. Jim Schwartz called a great game. They did a fantastic job against the Atlanta run game. They blitzed effectively. They covered beautifully on the back end. I mean, the catches that Sanu and Jones made were contested catches, and the Eagles also tackled very, very well. On the offensive side, Nick Foles loved the game plan, get the ball out of his hands, found a nice rhythm going with Alshon Jeffrey. They ran the football, they stuck with it, and they were aggressive in the face of some early troubles. So a 15-10 win here. It just felt like New Orleans in 2014 all over again as the Falcons were working their way down the field. Eagles really hung tough, great coverage on the back end there, Jalen Mills against Julio Jones. Eagles have to clean a lot of things up here. You can't turn the ball over twice. But at the end of the day, the Falcons, who all year had trouble in the red zone, came up short from 2 yards out. And guys, this Lincoln Financial Field crowd did not sit down the entire time. I don't know if you could tell on television just how loud and into it they were from the start to the finish. It is going to be a party in South Philadelphia tonight. Back to you at the NovaCare Complex.
Thank you so much, Dave. We can't wait to read the On the Inside column and listen to the Eagles Eye podcast. That locker room is going to be absolutely bonkers. It's going to be great to get that perspective. Dave, great stuff as always. So I love, getting back to the offense, just how balanced the attack was. But we also saw some new wrinkles in this game, where you saw Nelson Aguilar on that one run where it was like the end around as he goes into the second quarter to help set up the touchdown by LeGarrette Blount. You saw the aggressiveness by Doug Pearson going for it on 4th and goal. It was a situation where you were thinking to yourself, do you go for it here? Do you take the free points? To me, before they called the play, I was like, go for it, because you don't know how many times you're going to get this close here. Nick Foles was doing a good job moving the football. They were doing a good job of consistently, extending drives and getting the ball down the field. But when you're that close in a playoff game, I don't want 3-3. I'm here to go for the chip. Yeah. And that's why I want to see them go for on that 4th down. But some new wrinkles there from Doug Pearson, called at perfect times. Again, it's just a great job by him and the rest of the coaching staff taking advantage of the bye week to come up with those little plays that maybe he was saving in his back pocket for quite some time and unveiling them at the right moments.
Yeah, and I think he had another play in his back pocket that he wanted to run on 4th and 2 late in that game, but he decided to go ahead and kick the field goal, which was exactly the right call.
Yes.
But that's what the benefit of the bye week is. It gives you an opportunity to work on things that you haven't shown in the regular season. And when you get that opportunity in these moments, sometimes you decide to bring it out. And who knows, you may wind up seeing it next week, because you're at a point right now, there's no sense in saving plays because there's no next week guaranteed for you. So I thought Doug was his usual aggressive self, and you're right. Early in the game, they needed 7 there. It felt like if they didn't get 7 there, and instead of kicking the field goal, making it 3-3, it would have been a little bit deflating. But to go for it on 4th down, LeGarrette Blount comes up with the big touchdown.
Trey Burton with the block.
Yeah, I thought that was
huge.
A huge decision from Doug to do that.
What did you think of the way the running backs were deployed? Okay, Jay Ajayi was a focal point in the first quarter. Then you get in the second quarter, and a lot of reporters, a lot of fans were wondering what was going on there with Jay Ajayi. He wasn't involved. To me, it seemed like the Eagles really wanted to establish the interior ground game, and LeGarrette Blount is the guy for those inside runs. That's why I feel like you saw him more, and then on 3rd down you saw Corey Clement. But it's amazing how you're seeing the trust in a rookie like Clement in some of those big situations, and he was doing a great job of catching the ball out of the backfield. But overall, what were your thoughts on the way that Doug and Deuce Staley deployed the running backs today?
Well, when I watched Jay Ajayi run the ball the way he was in the first quarter, as an observer, you always want to say, feed him the ball, feed him the ball. He seems to be the hot running back right now. But here's what I'll do. I've done it all year long. I'll trust this coaching staff when it comes to the running backs. Deuce is in charge of which guy is going in for whatever play is about to be called, and it's pretty much worked out for them all year long. So I'll stick with trusting Deuce and the coaching staff with the running back rotation. But you can't help but want more when you see Jay Ajayi running the ball as well as he was. But LeGarrette Blount had success running in between the tackles, and I love Corey Clement, catching the ball out of the backfield. He was huge. You see that Nick Foles has trust getting him the ball, and he rewarded Nick with his trust by catching the ball in some key situations. So that's the beauty of having, multiple backs that you can go to. It's difficult for a defense to sort of get a key on what type of plays you want to run.
Is it difficult though?
Yeah, I think so, because here's the thing. If you're running those guys in and out of there like that, or you seem to got a beat on the focal back, then now it becomes a little bit easier for the defense to defend. And that's why you're starting to see around the league multiple back sets, whether it's 2 backs or single backs. Most teams don't feature just one running back.
No.
So, you keep guys fresh, especially for late in the game. And the coaches seem to know which guys fit best for the type of plays they want ran.
Let's talk about the wide receivers, because I thought the outside guys, Alshon and Torrey Smith, were going to have a tough time today being able to make plays. Because, look, the Falcons, they can lock down. Those corners are pretty good. Robert Alford, Desmond Trufant, especially when they go to those man coverage schemes, they can lock down those outside receivers pretty well. But you mentioned the third quarter drive already, and especially the end of the first half, it was just so eerily reminiscent of when you go back to that win over the Giants back in Week 3, which helped propel the Eagles in this 2017 season. Eagles trying to get a late field goal there. Well, they've got to make a play to get into field goal range. Nick Foles, instead of Carson Wentz, finds Alshon Jeffrey. He gets out of bounds, and kudos to the clock operator for making sure that 1 second stayed on the clock for Elliott to be able to get out there to kick that field goal. But in the third quarter there, you got to feed your best players. As Matt Ryan tried to get to Julio Jones on that potential game-winning play, Nick Foles was going to Alshon Jeffrey. He did a great job. And Torrey Smith, you mentioned how he drew the pass interference play, but he also was able to recognize that bounce that went off of Keanu Neal's knee. Huge play. That should have been an interception. He catches it to help keep him in that in situation to be able to go get those points.
Yeah, and listen, you're gonna need bounces like that to bounce your way. Atlanta didn't take advantage of an overthrown ball. It bounces off Keanu Neal and Torrey Smith because he's playing hard, he's playing fast, he's Johnny on the spot, he's alert, he's able to catch that. That picked up a huge chunk of yardage. We're able to get in field goal range a few plays after that, and that drive was huge. They got the ball, I believe, with like 40-something seconds left to go with a couple timeouts, and to hit Alshon Jeffrey with that big throw and then him get out of bounds, and then Jake Elliott come in there with a big 53-yard kick right before the half. I mean, every point the Eagles were able to muster today, they needed every last one of them. Because you think about this, he doesn't make that field goal right before the half, or if he doesn't get the opportunity to make the field goal right there, Atlanta has the opportunity to win the game 13-12 with a field goal attempt. That is so huge when you talk about whether or not you need a touchdown to win the game or a field goal late in the game to win.
Truly made it all the difference there. So, the Eagles were able to overcome mistakes. The one thing going into this game that I didn't think they had to play a perfect game per se, Ike, but I didn't think that they could make the mistakes they made and still come out on top. And I think that shows just how deep this team really is, especially the way they're able to overcome some of those early miscues. Once Ajayi had the fumble, you said to yourself, you got the big play, the big pass interference from Torrey Smith on the opening drive. You follow up, you figure you're in good field position here. You might be able to get those early points on the board. Ajayi has a fumble. Most teams, and I think maybe the crowd might have even sensed, is this going to be one of those long days?
Yeah.
But the Eagles were able to rebound, okay? They get the third down stop after they score the touchdown. You think to yourself, all right, offense going to get the ball back, and then a rare special teams miscue comes after that, which is how the Falcons beat the Rams just a week ago.
Yeah.
So you're thinking to yourself, deja vu, is this going to happen again this time to the Eagles? But kudos to the Eagles for overcoming those mistakes and being able to take advantage of some key opportunities. You mentioned there the play at the end of the first half, but also on the LeGarrette Blount touchdown, that ball was almost fumbled because Nelson Aguilar and Corey Clement, I don't know if there was a missed time on the snap, but they crossed into one another. Clement wasn't ready for the ball. It's on the ground. Ball gets on the ground. Nick Foles has the awareness to be able to pick it up, and he almost got himself into the end zone. Brian Poole stopped him just short of the goal line, and that's where Doug Pearson decided to go for it on fourth down.
Yeah, and that's when you know the football gods are shining down.
For once.
Yeah, we needed.
For once.
And we needed them to. We needed those plays. Listen, you had a couple bad bounces early in the game to put Atlanta in position to go up and score a touchdown on you. But we had some bounces that bounced our way. We talked about the Torrey Smith catch off of the Keanu Neal dropped interception. But that play with Nick Foles was huge as well, because if Nick's not there to recover that fumble, then you don't have LeGarrette Blount going in for the touchdown. I mean, I've seen that play plenty of times. A defensive lineman falls right there on the ball. So you needed plays like that today. This was by no stretch of the imagination a dominating performance by the Eagles, but that's okay. That's okay. You need sometimes for the ball to bounce your way. And every team will tell you that. Atlanta doesn't get here this week, more than likely, if the ball doesn't bounce their way last week in LA. So every team needs those type of bounces, and you need them to go your way. And today the Eagles had a couple of bounces go their way, and it shook out to be even. They gave two balls away to Atlanta. They got a couple bounces to go their way, and then they needed a big defensive stand late in the game to seal the victory. And that's what you need. That's what this team has been about all year long, a complete team effort. I know we focus on Carson and the type of MVP year that he had, but I've been trying to stress to people all along that this is a complete team, and they win together, they lose together, and I love the way you watch them once they realized that they were going to get the W tonight, you watch how excited they were on the sideline. You watch Brandon Graham hugging Doug Peterson, whispering something to him. They love playing for Doug Peterson, man. And this was a big win for Doug. He needed that. This team, because of the way that they've dominated throughout the regular season, and we had the misfortune of losing our MVP quarterback, this was a character win. This was a win that this team deserved to have, because obviously if number 11's in there, it may be a totally different ball game as far as how close it is. But this was like a gut check win. They needed this
But
win.
the thing is, once they lost Carson Wentz, pretty much all they've played have been gut check type of games. Okay? Yeah. You know, we're going to send it out over the link. Speaking of how everyone's so happy for him, the victorious head coach Doug Pearson speaking now at the link.
Whether it's pressure on a quarterback or stop the run or whatever was going to happen, just find a way to get it done.
I know you in every game trying to run the ball, balance it. Today you were able to do that. How difficult was it to stay, with that game plan?
It really wasn't. Part of our success this season has been the balance of run and pass, and we got back to that. We committed to that. We stuck with it, and guys executed the game plan extremely well.
Doug,
What got Nick Foles going?
Doug, at the end of the game, I know you've been emotional at the end of certain games. It appeared that you were more emotional. Your personal feelings when you win a playoff game as a head coach, when the game is over.
Everything kind of rushes through your mind, but the biggest emotion for me was the team, the guys, the resiliency of this football team, and our backs against the wall. People, discount us, don't give us much credit, whatever it might be, and for our team to battle and against a fine football team, a team that was obviously this time of year is playing extremely well, hot football team. That's one thing about this team that I love so much. They battle to the end, and so that was the biggest kind of rush of emotion, just thinking about the players.
What got Nick Foles going? It seemed like you got him in a rhythm, and he just started, just driving the team.
Nick is Nick, and that's what we've talked about, and that's what he and I have talked about, and stayed committed to the run, obviously, and that helps, and then with the passing game, just him making great decisions, and getting the ball out of his hand, finding the open receiver, and did a really nice job, executed the game plan how we and how I know Nick can.
Coach, you've been very aggressive all season. How close were you going for it on fourth down before you decided to let Jake kick it?
I was really considering that, going for it, I really felt like at that time, if we do make it, now obviously the kick, you're up 5 and you're putting it back in your defense's hands, and which is a positive because I felt like they were playing extremely well at that time. But I also knew that if we do go for it and make it at that point, game could be over at that time. But I elected to take the timeout, talk about it a little bit more, and then just ultimately kick the field goal.
It seemed like Nick Foles got into a rhythm when you went to that tempo offense. What is it that makes you, have that decision to run that tempo like that?
Well, in situations like that, when you have like a big pass or a run, the play before, a lot of times it's much easier to go tempo because the game clock, the shot clock starts right away, and it's hard to get personnel in, call a play, when it's easier just to get to the line of scrimmage and call one of our tempo plays. So did that a couple times tonight. It was successful. It helped us, and it was a big part of the success the guys had, keeping Atlanta kind of on their heels at a couple times.
You had that big play call where you handed off to Nelson Aguilar and he got 30-yard gain inside 5. First time you ran that play all year, at least in the game. What was your thinking on that play?
It's a play that we've actually had in our arsenal. We've had it up in game plans before this season. Just never got to it. We were in the right situation. I believe it was a third down, when we called it. And it was just the right time. We had been running the same play with our running backs, the exact same play with Jay and LeGarrette earlier in the game. This was just an opportunity for Nelly to put it in his hands with Lane as a puller, and just executed extremely well.
So you were picked to be, you're an underdog at home, one against the six, first time ever. Were you and your team insulted about that reality without Carson Wentz? And do you feel validated after this win and the way that you won?
You know, you know what? At the end of the day, we find a way to win the game. You know, whether we're underdogs or favored, listen, you know, love all those guys in that locker room right there. They don't care. I don't care. Our fans are a big part of the success tonight. And it's about those players in that dressing room, whether we're 3-point underdogs or 3-point favorites. They really don't listen to that stuff, you know. Of course, they've been sort of force-fed for about 3 weeks now, the information, and you know, they just stick together. They just stick together and find a way, and it's been that way all season.
How important were the points at the end of the first half, momentum-wise, going into the locker room with that field goal?
That was huge. You know, to be able to get down there with, you know, we're out of timeouts. You know, Nick to Alshon on the sideline was huge to get us into that field goal range, 53-yarder, I believe it was, and Jake's been doing that all season long. And it was great to get momentum with our defense coming back out, you know, to start the second half.
Doug, you had a tough decision at the end of the game there, whether to go for it on 4th and 1 or to kick a field goal to go by 5.
I think I just talked about that, didn't I?
Sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. Get his notes.
My bad.
The offensive line, what stood out about that?
The offensive line? Gosh, just the way they you know, just the way they play together. You know, it's been that way all season long. I think they've been hearing a lot of talk that the last couple of weeks not playing great, this and that, whatever. But they've had a great couple of weeks of practice preparation. Stout does a great job putting a run plan together, and you know, just you know, getting back to that physical style that they're used to and they're accustomed to, and did a nice job. Did a real nice job.
You say that the team doesn't care about being an underdog. Right now, Lane Johnson's running around with a dog mask on. Is it something that you think they would
Ask
embrace?
Lane. That's kind of crazy to me.
But is it something that they would embrace for motivation?
Well, you listen. For about, when did Carson go down? Okay, since that point, no one's given us a chance. Nobody has given us a chance. And I understand Carson's a great player, but every week our guys are hearing the same thing, that now we're all of a sudden not good enough. You know, we're 13-3. We have the best record in football. We're, you know, home field advantage throughout. Listen, there's not a lot of, I mean, the guys are going to motivate themselves just based on what they've done for them, heard for the last month of football, you know. Listen, it really doesn't matter what you guys talk about, because that locker room in there is united, and I'll go to bat for every one of those guys, and I'll go to war with every one of those guys in that dressing room.
Can you talk about Brandon Graham and the plays that he made down the stretch, particularly the one on Freeman?
Oh, it's a tremendous play. Tremendous play. He had a couple tackle for losses tonight. Did a great job putting pressure. He's so quick off the ball and times the snap count up. And that play you're referring to there in the fourth quarter was a huge. It was kind of a cutback run, and he dove, made the tackle. That could have gone for a long way, but you know, he's a guy that we've counted on all season long. And you know, again, he stepped up, had a nice game.
Brandon said that he knew that it was going to be a sprint out on that final 4th down play. I know it's not your side of the ball, but did you and your staff recognize that from the sideline as well?
Yeah, the communication was a couple of things, obviously, because they had a couple timeouts, but typically in those situations, get the quarterback on the run gives you more of an option to throw the football, and so our guys were ready for that.
On the first touchdown, what factored into the decision to go for the 4th down there?
Just where we were, it was early in the game. Gosh, I think the ball was just inside the 1 yard line, and you know, if confidence to go for it in that situation, you know, we're real close, and guys did a great job. LeGarrette getting in the end zone, great, well blocked play.
Doug, what was this atmosphere like compared to playing here in a regular season game? And what kind of a boost do you have knowing on Sunday you're going to have that again?
I tell you, it is an unbelievable feeling when you're standing on the field and you come out for the game and the stadium's just rocking with fans, and they're loud. They're loud from the opening kickoff to the last whistle, and our fans are awesome. You know, it's a tremendous experience for our players, for the city of Philadelphia, obviously, and I can't be any happier for the way our crowd came out today and cheered on our guys, and we were able to reward them with another opportunity next Sunday. So we're excited about that, and expect the same craziness next weekend.
In the second quarter, Jay was on the sideline for most of that quarter. Was there a reason for that?
We just didn't have the ball. I mean, that, and we were off the field, a couple 3-and-outs, and we were punting the football. So it was just opportunity at that time, or lack of it. Well, that's it. Oh.
Keep talking all day long, all right? You know, one of the things I absolutely love about Doug Pearson, it seems like he takes on the personality of his team, his players, okay? And he's probably the one obviously setting the tone, but at the same time, he was a little chippy there with the media, and I think that's because he was sick and tired of hearing everyone doubt this team. So a lot of people are discussing whether or not the players and how they're reacting to the underdog label and mentality. And it seems like Doug is taking ahead of that as well and making sure that, look, you know, we're still a good football team. It wasn't just one person who got us to this point in the season.
Yeah, let me put my former player hat on now.
Okay.
I know exactly what Doug is feeling. I know exactly how those players are feeling. When you got to hear all this stuff on the outside after you've had the type of season that you had, and because you lose your starting quarterback, everyone predicts that your season is over with. You're going to be one and done in the postseason. Well, as the other 52 players, they're going to take that as a sign of disrespect. Like, hold on, did we do anything to contribute to the success of this team, or was Carson out here playing 1 against 22, offense and defense? And this is no slight towards Carson, but as professional athletes, you take offense to everyone giving up on you and saying you're not good enough. And listen, Doug's right. You can't be overly consumed with what people say on the outside, but there's nothing wrong with grabbing a little extra motivation from it, as long as you use it correctly. And it looks like this team, as well as him, have found a way to not be overly consumed with the underdog and all that type of stuff, but they also found a way to use it as extra motivation. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not that this team needed additional motivation, okay? You talked about Brandon Graham earlier hugging Doug Pearson on the sideline. You know, Brandon Graham has been here since 2010, hasn't experienced a playoff win. Brent Selleck was here for the 2008 run, but hasn't won a playoff game since. You know, that's why he was one of the guys who addressed the team this week, saying this opportunity doesn't come all that often, okay? You know, we forget that the last time the Eagles were in the divisional round was that 2008 campaign. They haven't gotten to the second round of the playoffs since then. It's been quite some time. So
yeah, we're not used to this.
No, exactly. So we want to get used to it once again. And with Carson, we should have sustained success for down the line. But that doesn't mean you can't take advantage of what's in the here and now. And that's being able to go out there and beat the Atlanta Falcons. And then next Sunday, 6:40 p.m., it's going to be rocking at the link once again, as you'll get either the New Orleans Saints or the Minnesota Vikings. Again, tickets go on sale Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Now, one person who is definitely going bonkers this evening, actually two people, Mel Reese and Mike Quick, we're going to give you a look at what it was like inside the Sports Radio 94 WIP booth as a game was transpiring with some of those big, dramatic moments. Let's send it over now to Merrill Cam.
Foles under center. Foles gives it off. Blunt going outside. He's in. Touchdown.
An outstanding job. An excellent play call in this situation. That's playing football to win.
Three receivers right. Ertz left. Foles back again. He drops. He steps up. He pumps. He fires. It is complete to Jeffrey, who steps out of bounds with 1 second left at the 35-yard line. Go back to the Giants game that was won on a 61-yard field goal by Jake Elliott, and that was that was the same thing where it was Jeffrey who stepped out of bounds with 1 second left. 1 second to go. The ball is spotted. The kick is away, and the kick is... It's good! 37-yard field goal attempt by Jake Elliott to give the Eagles the lead with 16 seconds to go in quarter number 3. Ball is spotted. Kick is away. And the kick is good. And the Eagles lead. On first down, Ryan goes back. He's being sacked. And now he's on the way back at the 28 thanks to Rodney McLeod.
They got it all back.
Ball is spotted, the kick is up, and the kick is good. There's a timeout on the field with the score, the Eagles 15, Atlanta 10. The game could ride on this. The Falcons break from the huddle. Jones wide right.
Where is Julio?
Sanu in the slot. Lone receiver to the left. Ryan with Coleman to his left. Ryan rolls. Ryan pumps. Ryan is throwing it up in the air. Incomplete! Incomplete! Intended for Jones. Incomplete! And the Eagles take over on downs with 58 seconds left.
What an unbelievable job by this defense. It's hard to come to South Philadelphia and leave here with the win. You just don't come to Philadelphia and leave here with the win.
Well, they haven't won yet because there are 2 timeouts remaining for the Falcons.
You know, this is a bunch of prideful men, and they really had to deal all week with listening to everyone, all of the national people talking about how they can't win against the Atlanta Falcons, even in their own house. Well, I think they took that to heart. And I think that's the reason why they are now moving on.
And it's over. It's over. The clock ticks away the final seconds, and the Eagles have defeated the Atlanta Falcons 15-10. They are 1 win away from the Super Bowl.
Thanks again to Sports Radio 94 WIP for providing us with Merrill Cam. So Doug Pearson said that the fans, they deserve another chance to get a cheer at an Eagles game, and they will certainly get that next Sunday when the Vikings or the Saints come to town. So it gives fans a great reason to watch the games tomorrow, to be able to scout the next opponent that's going to be coming to the link. But that's the thing, is you got to 13-3 so that you can have home field advantage, so that you can have these magical games in your house to take advantage of that crowd in your building.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. You just want the opportunity to go out there and give yourself the best chance to win. And because of the way they've been playing at home really over the last 2 years, I mean, they have as good of a chance of anybody of going to the Super Bowl, even without our starting quarterback that we had at the beginning of the year. It's because this defense is smothering at home. To hold that Atlanta Falcons offense to only 10 points, I believe the Eagles defense over the last 2 years, averaging giving up 14 or less, that's the best in the NFL.
Yep.
That's going to give us more than a fair shot next week, regardless of who we're playing. If it's the Saints or the Vikings, it's a different atmosphere when opposing teams have to come in here and play. This defense has really fed off of this home crowd over the last 2 years, and we're back to having a true home field advantage when you come to Philadelphia.
Indeed, 14-3, including the postseason over the last 2 years, the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field. And you look at the Atlanta Falcons last season, 2006, highest scoring team in the league, held to 15 points. Same pieces, obviously different scheme, new coordinator, but still, you still had Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman, all those guys in place, held them to 10 points. So something wasn't clicking with this Atlanta Falcons team. Now, they were getting hot at the right time. I mean, they had to overcome the 28-3 lead that they gave up in the Super Bowl, losing to the Patriots in overtime. You know, from seeing with the Eagles over the years, it's hard to get back all the way to the divisional round of the playoffs, let alone get to the second round. So everyone thought that once they got in the tournament, they were going to be the hottest team because they had that playoff experience and they still had all the weapons in place. But it probably was taking a toll on them, the fact that they had to win at the end of the year to get into the postseason. Then they had to go all the way to the West Coast for an emotional, physical win against the Rams, which was, you know, the high-flying Rams offense. Then just to come back to Atlanta and then have to travel back up to Philadelphia for a very difficult place to play. It's not too bad playing in Los Angeles as we experienced earlier this year. It's much different now when you're coming to Philadelphia.
Yeah, and give Atlanta a lot of credit, man. This is a good football team. They were NFC champions last year. You talked about, you know, typically the team that loses the Super Bowl doesn't fare very well the following year. Most don't even make the playoffs. So Atlanta struggled early in the year. They sort of got themselves together. The second half, they won 7 out of their last 9 games. But you also mentioned a key component there is they've been in the playoffs for about a month. they had to fight to get in the playoffs. They had to hold off the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks to get that 6th seed. They needed to win late. They had to go out to L.A. And I think, quite frankly, it's just too much of a mental toll to have to overcome. And to come in here against a team that's well-rested like the Eagles, that play as well as they do at home, it's just too much to overcome for even a Falcons team that possesses the likes of a Matt Ryan and a Julio Jones, the running back tandem that they have, Mohamed Sanu. They have the weapons on offense. I'll give them credit. They came to play today. It's just that the Eagles were the better team today.
The Eagles had to win ugly down the stretch.
Yeah.
Once they lost Carson Wentz, you go back to that fourth quarter of that Rams game, they had to find a way to come from behind to win that contest. Where in that game, we talk about Doug Pearson and the job he's done all season. I thought he outcoached Sean McVay in that final quarter. We saw Jared Goff kind of get the deer in the headlights look, with a playoff atmosphere there, especially when it felt like a road game for the Rams, and the Eagles were able to escape there. Then the Eagles, with Nick Foles making his first start, fall behind 20-7 to the New York Giants. And yes, the defense struggled, but guess what? It's a complete team. Special teams coming through with the block kicks. Nick Foles leads the offense with 4 touchdown passes. They're able to come from behind. And then the Oakland game, look, wasn't pretty whatsoever, but they did just enough taking advantage of some good field position late. They got the win that secured home field advantage. The Raiders gave them all they could handle, even though they were out of the playoff race. They were on the opposite side of the country in a holiday weekend. But still, Oakland tried to make it a fight. The Eagles were able to hold them off. And then the Dallas game, you're hoping to see some good things from the offense in that first quarter. But basically, it was at that point, just give them some reps so they are not super rusty going into the postseason. But pretty much the Eagles have had to win ugly the last month of the season once Carson Wentz went down. So this is not new, trying to win these games late. And the biggest difference between this Eagles team in 2017 as compared to the one in 2016, they're winning the close games.
Yeah.
When the game's on the line and the defense is on the field, they're able to make those stops. They're able to get off the field and come away victorious. So that to me is, just shows how Doug Pearson was able to take this team, where he set the foundation in 2016, but was able to grow and manifest it to where it is now, just one win away from playing in the Super Bowl in Minneapolis.
Yeah, these are true character wins. I mean, when you lose your best player, you're going to need everyone else to pick up their level of play. And I love what the defense has been able to do over the last month. They have been stingy since that first half of the New York Giants game. They really have been smothering to opposing teams' offenses. And Nick has to find his rhythm with these guys. And the thing I love about this team is that the defense has played well enough that it allows for the offense to sort of find the rhythm. And I think come next week, you're going to get the best performance that you've seen from this offense. Will it be enough? We're going to find out if it's going to be enough. I think it will be. But now you'll have 4 or 5 weeks of Nick being the starting quarterback, getting all the first-team reps. We'll find out what the weather is going to be like next week. But the fact that they've been practicing together with Nick over the last 5 weeks, I think is going to lend itself to being a better precision offense when they take the field next week. It takes a little bit of time for coaches to figure out, okay, what plays work best with the quarterback that's in there right now. How do we play off of his strengths versus his weaknesses? How do we manage the game? We're not going to get points in bunches like we did when Carson Wentz was there, whereas you can allow for the defense to be a little bit more reckless when you know your offense is going to put up close to 30 points. But when you know you have to play a game pretty much close to the vest, that changes what you do defensively. That changes what you do special teams-wise. It changes what you do as a head coach, as a play caller, calling the game. Because now you can't be as reckless with your decisions because every play means everything, because there is no guarantee that you're going to be able to recover from a mistake early in the game. But I love the fact that this team has the type of character that when things aren't going well early in the game, they don't get down, they don't start to point the finger, and more importantly, it doesn't begin a snowball effect. They gave those turnovers up early in the game. With a lot of teams, you see that start to become a snowball effect. Guys start to press. Guys start to do too much. Guys start to do other people's jobs as opposed to doing their own job. I love what I've seen from this team, that when things aren't going well, they almost pull closer together. They start pulling for each other a lot more. You look on that sideline, you don't see a lot of faces, downtrodden faces.
No.
You don't see guys over there pointing a finger at each other. You don't see outbursts on the sideline from somebody yelling, "Get me the football," or "Why I'm not in the game." And those are the things that you build success off of. We talk about a team that's a model of consistency, the New England Patriots. When things are at its most chaos in the game, the New England Patriots typically are the most calm. And it's the other team that's making mistakes over there. And that's what you're starting to see from the Eagles. When things aren't going well, they stay calm.
All right, send it over to Nick, the winning quarterback, Nick Foles, speaking now at Lincoln Financial Field.
Did you feel like you did, and did you feel like you really took off from there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I felt good all game. I thought we were moving the ball throughout the course of the game. I think the thing in the first half is we made a few mistakes that hurt us a lot. But just coming in at halftime, the thing was just keep playing, let's keep getting in a rhythm. We had a lot of long drives throughout the course of the game. And ultimately, it was a great team win. Defense came up huge at the end. They were great throughout the course of the game. It feels really good.
Nick, aside from the early sack, you didn't get touched very much. Did you get a sense that you were going to have an extra tick because the O-line was doing its job?
O-line did a great job all day, all night. Yeah, I felt really comfortable there. I was, just subtle movements in the pocket and working in the pocket. They did an awesome job all day. I'm very humbled to win this game. To be a part of this team, that's what it's always been about. I know there was a lot of people against us this last week. Just answering questions and just hearing about it. But the biggest thing about this is that's sports. That's part of it. And the biggest thing in our locker room is we believe in one another. Everyone believes, and that was shown on display tonight. The city of Philadelphia obviously believes because they were here and loud. So we're grateful for that. But honestly, it's unbelievable to win this game, and we still, we're not finished.
Obviously, there was some struggle. You thought about retiring. Just comparing that to the opportunity that you now have in front of you, is that just surreal?
It is. I've said in different interviews before, I feel like every person goes through moments in their life where it's a big decision moment. And that was it for me. And I'm glad I went through it. And I said in my interview earlier that I'm a better person, better player, better father, better, husband because of what I went through and having to decide that, because I decided that with my family. And, it's unbelievable to be up here. It's very humbling to be up here to go to the NFC Championship game with the Philadelphia Eagles. It's been a crazy ride, and I'm excited that I get to do it with these guys.
Nick, obviously the last two appearances there were some struggles. What was different tonight?
I think we just kept working. We kept grinding. It really goes back to believing and having faith in one another that we can get this done. Because there's going to be a lot of outside noise in any sport, any situation where you're doing something on a big stage. There's going to be criticism. That'll always be there, but we blocked that out. You're aware of it because you're human, but we blocked it out and we just went to work. We had, great 2 weeks of practice. And I think that's the big thing is I've always said preparation will give you an opportunity to win, but then your heart's got to go out there and you got to play with all your heart and give everything you have. And, both teams left everything they had on the field tonight.
Getting that field goal drive at the end of the first half, how much did that feel you in the second half in terms of confidence in moving the ball in the second half?
I think just any time in those situations where you can get points going in at halftime and, when there's not much time is huge, and it gives you a momentum. And Jake did an awesome job kicking that thing through.
Hey, Nick, how difficult was the wind out there? We could see the flag blowing.
Y'all know, it was fine. I mean, it was fine. I think I saw on the board it was in the 20s, and I saw the flags, but I felt fine all day.
What do you think of Doug's decision to call that same screen pass on that third down that Johnny took 32 yards?
I love it. I mean, you just said it. I mean, it's 32 yards, so I love it.
How did it work the second time?
A lot of times when you're on a screen, teams don't expect it again. And then we have probably the most athletic linemen in the league. I mean, they're amazing what they can do. And that's why screens work. You got to get out, and they lead the way. So, I mean, that was a huge play in the game for us.
Last part of you that wants to say to the people who doubted you, people who make the odds, look what I did.
I succeeded despite you being certain I would fail? Is there any part of you that wants to do that?
Honestly, I don't need to.
Why?
Because it doesn't matter. They're doing their job, but it doesn't affect how I play or what I believe. And y'all asked me last week, am I confident in myself? Well, I am confident in myself because I know how hard we work, and I know that we believe in one another in that locker room. So there's no need to waste my time to say anything about it because we went out there and played great team football. We played Philadelphia Eagle football tonight, and that's the most important thing. I don't need to say anything to anyone except, it doesn't even matter.
In your last playoff game, you left the field with a lead and lost the game. What was it like watching from the sideline as the defense made that stand at the end?
It's hard sitting there watching, but at the same time, you have complete faith in your defense because they've shown it all season, and they did it once again. And it just, why not happen that way? They've done an amazing job all season, and they played great tonight against a really, good offense and amazing team. And they were in the Super Bowl last year, and had a huge opportunity to win, the Super Bowl. And they're a really good team. They played well.
What was the conversation at 4th and 1 when Doug first seemed like he was going to go for it, then he ended up kicking it?
We were just talking about like timeout situation and everything, and ultimately, I'm behind Coach Pearson 100%. Our defense it proved everyone right, and in that situation, offensively, you want to be aggressive, but I love Coach Pearson's calls all the time, and I was 100% by it, and we kicked it through and we were able to get the win.
You were able to elevate your play in the second half. What in particular was it about that second half that allowed you to do so? It seemed like you were getting into a rhythm.
I think you just said it, get into a rhythm. And in the first half, I still felt good. We made too many mistakes, ball being on the ground and whatnot. So when you can eliminate those, that really helps you maintain that rhythm. And then getting a couple of third downs helps a lot as well. But I felt like we were driving the ball all day and doing a good job staying on the field. And I don't know, just second half, we just kept believing, kept sticking with one another. We were on the sidelines talking all day, and there was never one moment where anyone was worried because we knew we get the job done.
What did Carson have to say yesterday?
He was just really excited. He's just really excited. He's all about this team. He's been an amazing friend to me throughout this, and he's a big reason we're here. So no one should forget that. He's a tremendous player, even better person. And to have him there on the sideline to go through the stuff, Nate, him and I have done all this together all season, and it's really cool to, all of us still together going through all the pictures, talking through the game.
How was that different with Carson being, on the sidelines? How involved was he
We go through the pictures, we talk through it. A lot of times when you're playing, you're zoned in, but you talk through different looks, different things they see, and then you go from there.
Did it seem like forever? It seemed 2 weeks is a long time between games. And with everything going on and swirling around you and all the stuff people were saying, were you just getting really antsy to get on the field?
I was excited to play. I felt really comfortable going into this game because of the 2 weeks of work we had. I felt like every day we went out there and busted as hard as we could, and we got better. On the bye week, we went out there and really took a big step forward. And then this last week, I thought our preparation was awesome. But you really never know. You can feel that way, but you never know till you get to the game. And just get into a rhythm and figuring out that rhythm and, playing and, 15 points, got the job done. But we still have a long ways to go. We still got to keep getting better.
On the pass to Alshon at the end of the half, what was the thinking in terms of time and distance?
You want to hit it on the sidelines because I think at that point we didn't have a timeout. So you're really just trying to make something happen to get into field goal range, and we were able to get that done.
Take a couple more questions if we have.
Thank you, Mayor Fantas. I apologize, but being in the position you guys are in right now, one game, Super Bowl, conference championship, just about that feeling, that special feeling you guys have to be where you are right now.
Yeah, I'm really just focusing. We have a little bit of time just to enjoy this moment and cherish it. Honestly, I can't wait just to go see my family. My daughter was at the game, so I know y'all know I love my daughter to death, so I cannot wait to go see her. It's crazy to be here to have an opportunity to play for the conference championship. Can't wait for it.
Got one more? Good.
I think I'm sorry.
Oh, of course.
On the
Of course. All right. Here we go. Everyone's ready to go.
Zach
But
I'm sorry, I just saw this.
no, it's okay. Here we go.
Zach Ertz said you originally were going to run the ball, and then the play clock was going down, and then the decision was made to kick the field goal. Is that the case?
At the end? Yeah. I mean, there wasn't enough time on the play clock for me to get it off. So I looked over the Doug, and he knew right away. So we waited.
I mean, how happy are you for Nick Foles, for the guy who had that dream season in 2013, 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, Pro Bowl MVP, gets the Eagles to the playoffs after beating the Dallas Cowboys in Week 17, leads them to the playoffs, leaves the field with the lead, never gets it back, okay? Yeah. Breaks his collarbone in 2014, never is a quarterback again the rest of the way. Then he goes to St. Louis, and goes to Kansas City, comes back to Philadelphia, and the most unlikely guy to lead the Eagles to their first playoff win since the 2008 campaign, one Nick Foles.
I'm excited for him. I really am. I've been a big fan of his from the time that we drafted him, and then you watched him play in 2013. How could you not be a fan of his? I never wanted to see him traded in the first place, but had he not been traded, we wouldn't have Carson Wentz. So I was double excited once we re-signed him this offseason, just because you never know what's going to happen throughout the course of a season. And he really is truly one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league, really with close to 50 starts under his belt. That's really pushing the envelope when you call him a backup, because he has so many starts under his belt. And so, I'm happy for Nick. He's been under a lot of scrutiny over the last month because of the offense has sputtered somewhat. The fact that he's able to go out there and deliver us our first playoff victory in some time, couldn't have happened to a better guy.
No, certainly that's the case. Again, he wanted to play for his young daughter, born, this offseason. Special moment for him that she gets to be at the game. And she's very young. She's not going to remember it, but at least she'll have the photos and everything down the line that they'll be able to cherish the moment. So great job by Nick Foles getting the Eagles to the NFC Championship game. Again, tickets go on sale Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. They will play either the Vikings or the Saints. Ike, which team would you rather see? Don't get into now. We're going to take a quick break here, but if you're following us on Facebook or Twitter, we have more exclusive content coming up on the other side. We'll delve into the possible matchups as well as break down the best plays in our All-22 review as Fran Duffy and Greg Cosell. Can't wait to get into that coaching tape. All that and more coming up. Stay tuned, everyone. The big 4th down play, 4th and goal from the 2-yard line. Matt Ryan looking around, trying to get it to his all-pro wide receiver, Julio Jones, but Jalen Mills is there. The pressure was there up front by the defense, forcing Ryan to roll to his right. And then the pass, that was pretty much not going to happen. Too high, but great job there by Jalen Mills, getting himself in position to make the play to finish off the Falcons, giving the Eagles the 15-10 victory, the team's first playoff win since the 2008 campaign. So in just a few moments, we're going to get Ike's thoughts on who he would prefer to see in the AFC Championship game. I thought the Falcons were probably the best team the Eagles would want to see in the first round. Everything worked out, I think, in their favor. But first, we're going to send it over to the other studio, where Fran Duffy and Greg Cosell are standing by at the Ricoh whiteboard for the Ricoh review to break down the big plays using the coaching tape from tonight's victory.
And that 4th down play, Greg came with the very
All right, we're going to get that figured out, and at the very least, we'll have it for you available on PhiladelphiaEagles.com or the Eagles app. So maybe fans might be itching to find out who would Ike prefer to see next Sunday. I have my thoughts. What are yours?
Well, it's like pick your poison. Either one of these teams are going to be a tough task for the Eagles next week. The Saints, we know what Hall of Fame quarterback to be, Drew Brees over there, those running backs they have in Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. They have Michael Thomas at the wide receiver position, so weapons everywhere for Drew Brees and the Saints. Defense not as good as the Minnesota Vikings, but better than average, the Saints defense is. And I just think that Vikings defense is just smothering. Not all that afraid of the offense, but their defense can make for an ugly game. And since you have ask me, and I definitely have to give you an answer.
You don't have to give me an answer.
Of course I do. Of course I do. I'm a radio talk show host.
You're in the media now.
We don't straddle the fence around here. I would rather see the Minnesota Vikings.
I will agree with that. The biggest reason is the quarterback position. I do not want to see Drew Brees and company here. If they do, guess what? You got to go out there and make sure it doesn't become a shootout. But to me, I think you can win ugly the way you did today against the Minnesota Vikings like you did against the Atlanta Falcons. That pretty much is it for me.
Believe me, if it's the Vikings, it will be winning ugly because the Vikings don't give up very much. I mean, that defense is as advertised. So, but if that's the case, I'd rather be defense versus defense as opposed to worrying about a quarterback who's won 2 playoff games already in Drew Brees and who has won coming to Philadelphia before. So getting an opportunity to get Case Keenum on the road, his first time in the playoffs, I'd much rather face that than to face a guy who's familiar with the surroundings like Drew Brees is. So bring on the Vikings. We'll be rooting for the purple tomorrow.
Indeed. So the Vikings, they're trying to become the first team to ever host a Super Bowl game, but they have to win 2 games. First, they have to take care of the Saints tomorrow, and then they have to come to the link next Sunday to be able to win in the NFC Championship game. The Eagles have played pretty well against the Vikings in the postseason. You go back to the amazing 2004 playoff run where you beat them in a divisional round. They beat them in the wild card round in the 2008 season. So the Eagles and Vikings have a pretty good playoff history if you're an Eagles fan. For you, Ike, let's go back in time to that 2004 run that ended in the Super Bowl. What was it like going into NFC Championship game week? Obviously, there's a lot more with the history because it was the 4th time in a row that you guys were going there. But did it feel different that year? Did it feel like that was the time that you knew that you guys would be able to get over the hump and reach the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it really did. I thought the Minnesota game was a tougher game for us because that was going to be our first game as a team back out there after, T.O. was hurt in game number 14, and basically the starters didn't play in weeks 15 and 16. That Minnesota game was the first time we went back out there as a true unit, and it was a little bit of a slow start, and we needed a couple turnovers to sort of pull it away, need a couple bounces to go our way. Remember, L.J. Smith fumbled the ball, and Freddie Mitchell caught it in the end zone. So by the time we got to that championship game, we were very confident going up against the Falcons. It was the first game against the Vikings that we needed to get over the hump.
But it was amazing how going into that championship game, you had the snow that fell, a foot of snow in Philadelphia that Saturday. So the atmosphere was absolutely pristine with the snow coming down, looking all immaculate, and then it just set the tone. It was frigid cold, but it was like the perfect weather for playoff football, for the Eagles defense, for you guys to dominate Michael Vick. That was the big storyline, was could the Eagles defense contain Michael Vick? And, he couldn't get it going with his legs, didn't do much with his arm, and you have that Brian Dawkins hit on Algie Crumpler that really set the tone at the end of the first half that made it seem like you guys aren't scoring anything from this point on. They scored on that drive, but were shut out in the second half.
Well, and people don't realize it was only 14-10.
Yes.
In the third quarter, so it really was still a tight game. And then Donovan and the offense sort of picked it up in that fourth quarter, and we knew that Michael and that Falcons offense, if they couldn't run the ball, they weren't going to do anything. No. Just too much wind, too cold. He couldn't throw accurately in that game. And so it would really basically boil down to whether or not our offense was going to be able to put another touchdown on the board to give us a 2-score lead.
I think about Chad Lewis sitting there in the end zone, and it was bittersweet because he suffered the Liz Frank injury, was not able to play in the Super Bowl, and who knows how things would have been if he were on the field. But still, at that point, you knew. Everyone in the stadium knew that this team was finally going back to the Super Bowl. All right, we're going to try it again with the Ricoh review. Fran Duffy, Greg Cosell, breaking down the biggest plays using the All-22. Let's see a different perspective of how the Eagles got the win.
And that 4th down play, Greg, came at the end of a very, very stressful drive. The Falcons get the football. They march down the field. It's 4th and goal inside the 5-yard line. And now you're in a situation where, and a lot of people will say, it's not the X's and O's, but it's the Jimmies and Joes when it comes down to these clutch situations on the goal line, 4th down.
Yeah, it's my old friend Sam Martigliano, the old coach of the Cleveland Browns, used to say in these situations, you think players, not plays. Yep. Same concept that you just said about Jimmys and Joes, not X's and O's. So what did the Falcons do? They thought Julio Jones right here, It didn't matter who he was matched up against in their mind. This happened to be Jalen Mills. So what they were going to do was they're going to roll Matt Ryan out, which of course cuts the field right in half. There's only one receiver you could possibly throw the ball to here on this design play because they thought Julio Jones was going to run.
See, we caught you in the middle of the play to tease it so that you'll want to come back to PhiladelphiaEagles.com or the Eagles app where we have the full All-22 review provided by Ricoh, the Ricoh review there for fans to witness. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our last break here, and on the other side, we're going to offer our final thoughts as we wrap up the Eagles' 15-10 win over the Atlanta Falcons and look ahead to an NFC Championship game showdown here in the city of brotherly love. We'll be right back, everyone. It's all quiet at the link now, but that will not be the case next Sunday at 6:40 p.m. when the Eagles host either the Vikings or the Saints in the NFC Championship game. And if you look in the top of the stadium under those lights, you see those banners? Yeah. The Eagles hope to add another banner, maybe in a couple weeks, a second banner there. But nonetheless, they want to get another banner, another NFC Championship banner, and they are one win away from doing it. It is insane when you look at that, at how rocking it was just a couple of hours ago. The fans showed out in a big way, and you seem to have some concern that they would. Yeah. To me, they were maybe being realists about the situation, knowing that, you know,
I don't need them to be realists. I need them to be fans.
But they, at the end of the day, they became fans.
Exactly.
It's a different culture, a different vibe here in Philadelphia. It's a different animal altogether because of the fact that they've been through so much heartache that they worry about getting themselves set up for that pain once again. They don't want that disappointment. And they feel like that, you know, the football gods, you mentioned how everything was on our side today, that typically that hasn't been the case here in Philadelphia. But still, when push came to shove, they were going to be there at 4:35 p.m. cheering and yelling and setting the tone there, you know, causing false starts. I think about the couple of times where you could tell the Falcons were having trouble there, you know, getting players off because of the crowd noise. Just an amazing atmosphere. Kudos to all the fans who are out there today. To me, what do you think the tenor is going to be going into the championship game now that they've won a playoff game? I can understand, you know, the trepidation because you hadn't seen good football from this team in a while. But now you've seen them win. They knocked off the defending AFC champions. Nick Foles played well enough to win. Defense was lights out. Now you're getting either the Vikings or the Saints. Neither team, I think, is going to make Eagles fans feel like we've got no shot. So what do you think the mood's going to be? Do you feel like you're going to have to get the Ike juice going on the radio again this week?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think you're absolutely right when you say they needed something to believe in. And this team getting a playoff win, I think will certainly bode well moving forward. Listen, you got one game to get to the Super Bowl. That's all that matters. You don't have time for any type of negative thoughts, any type of I don't need you to be a realist this week. I need you to be an Eagles fan this week. And that's what we've been pretty much going with on our show on 94 WIP is that, listen, you don't know how often you're going to get back to this spot. We hadn't won a playoff game at home since 2006. So these things aren't guaranteed. And I don't care who's the quarterback of your team. Dan Marino got to the Super Bowl in his second year and never got back to the Super Bowl again. And we know he's one of the greatest of all time. So I expect this fan base to continue to do what they did today. Next week, you got one more game at home guaranteed. At the next week, there are no more games here at the Link.
But you got another week.
But
you got themselves another week
to show up and root for your team wearing your midnight green. I know this city, I know this Delaware Valley will come and do their part. They're going to do their part next week. The players just need to do their part by giving them something to be excited for.
Doug Pearson just has to push the right buttons for another week. Get them to the Super Bowl. You know, just do what you've done. Again, it's do your job, do what's gotten you to this point. Doug Pearson has been a maestro, getting the Eagles to 14-3 and one game away from the Super Bowl. So, Ike, as we're going to close things out here, we're going to send it back over to the Link and showcase a shot. Look at that, Ike.
Yeah.
What do you feel when you see the banner that you helped put there at the Link?
That has been too long. This is too good of an organization. This organization has too much rich history. And, you know, as proud as I am of what we did in 2004, quite frankly, I'm tired of talking about 2004. I want them to get to the Super Bowl this year. I want them to win it. We'll always have that memory from 2004, but it's 2017, and we're still talking about 2004. Next week, we can move on from that, and hopefully we're NFC champions fighting for another chance at bringing that Lombardi here for the first time. That's what we want. You know, conference championships are nice. We want the world championship. That's what we want. This city deserves it. This organization deserves it. And I think we got the right people here to get it done.
Ike, well said. You can just clip out that last speech there, put it on social media, put it on the website, put it wherever. That was absolutely perfect. And
you know, I keep my emotions on my sleeves, man.
Of course.
You know, it's the only way I know.
As we're a little peek behind the curtain here, Ike was watching the game in the cafeteria. We were here in the studio, and Ike has it on a feed that's coming right from the stadium. So he's seeing things like 5 seconds before we do. Yeah. So all of a sudden you hear Ike yelling down the hall, and we're sitting here like, well, something happened. But it took some of that drama out of it because it was like a third. Because it's like a third. Oh no, you have to apologize, but it's like a third down situation. What's going to happen? And you're Ike going ballistic down the hall. You're like, well, obviously something good happened, and then it's like a delayed reaction because we're all going crazy a few moments later. So we had to find a place where we could see the stadium feed because we can't have Ike spoiling the end of the movie. That's what they got to do. Yeah. So we got a week. We got a week to get everything synced. So for Ike Reese and all the amazing people behind the scenes here at the Philadelphia Eagles, you've been watching the Postgame Show presented by Ricoh. I'm Chris McPherson. Everyone, have a phenomenal Eagles night.